Good morning. This is Fear Street, number 7. The book title is called Haunted. So, shall we begin? It sounded like whispering, a voice nearby. No, it couldn't be. It was the wind. Again, she heard it. She shivered from the cold, from surprise, from sudden fear. She gripped the wheel of the car tighter till stared straight ahead. What was it saying? She could hear it so clearly, a whisper right in her ear. Did it say her name? Yes, that's what it sounded like. Melissa. Just wind. Cold wind in her ear. Cold wind whispering so softly in her ear. Melissa. Her friend's house was just a few blocks away. I can make it, she thought, staring straight ahead, ignoring the whispering wind that repeated her name so insistently, so menacingly. I can make it if I can just keep control of the car. No, she cried out, as something or someone seemed to grab the wheel. Okay, that was the prologue. Chapter 1. Melissa Drides sat up in bed and screamed. Still half asleep, she felt the fear fall over her like a suffocating blanket. She screamed again as the noise at the bedroom window grew louder. No, please, don't come in here. Don't come in here. She started to scramble out of bed, but her legs were tangled in the bed sheet. Breathing hard, trying to choke back her panic, she tugged herself free and stumbled toward the door just as her father burst in. Lissa, what is it? She ran to him, ran behind him for protection, and pointed to the window. Someone is out there, she managed to say. The noise at the window grew louder. Huh? He squinted toward the window. He may not have had time to find his glasses in the dark. He heard the noise. He shook his head as if trying to wake himself up. Let me do this. There we go. Then pulled the belt on his flannel bathrobe tighter. Melissa tried to stop him, but he plunged ahead toward the window. No, Dad, wait. He was always so reckless. Didn't he ever stop to think about the danger? Melissa backed up and bumped into her bed table. Ow! Her phone crashed to the floor. The noise startled her. She wanted to run from the room, run from the house, but she couldn't leave her dad. Why was he laughing? Come here, Lisa. What? She tugged at her tangles of blonde hair with both hands. I said, come here. What is it? She took a few hesitant steps toward the window. Mr. Dryden, smiling, shaking his head, held back the curtain with one hand and pointed outside with the other. Here's your prowler. Melissa heard the tapping noise again, a loud tapping followed by a scraping sound. Still halfway across the room, she didn't go any closer. So what do you think it is? It's a tree branch, right? Right. What on earth? Melissa's mother came scurrying into the room and flicked on the lamp. What's going on? Nothing to be concerned about, Mr. Dryden said, looking out at the sky. Full moon. Look at that. The moon's always so big in August. I don't want to hear about the moon. I want to know what all the screaming was about, Mrs. Dryden said sharply. Mr. Dryden let the curtain fall back into place. He tugged at his bathrobe belt. Lisa heard a tree tapping at the window. A tree? Melissa sighed loudly. I thought it was a burglar, she said, plopping down on the bed. I was asleep, and I guess the noise woke me up, and... You shouldn't watch the news before you go to bed, Mrs. Dryden said. She walked over and squeezed Melissa's hand. All the talk about the prowler. Well, there is a Fear Street prowler, Mother, Melissa said, her voice rising several octaves. I didn't imagine that, someone has been breaking into houses on Fear Street, and we lived on Fear Street for 5 years, her mother said, pushing Melissa's thick hair back off her forehead. We've never had the slightest problem. Do you ever brush your hair? I like it wild. Hey, what are you wearing, Skinny Bone? Her father walked over, staring at her nightshirt. Don't call me Skinny Bone. You promise, Melissa wiped. She's sensitive about that, Mrs. Dryden scolded her husband. Why do you insist? What are you wearing? Mr. Dryden demanded, pulling on Melissa's sleeve. It's one of your pajama shirts, I think. I've been looking all over for that, her father yelled, looking up at the ceiling. He was always complaining straight to the heavens. I spent hours searching my dresser and... Sorry, I thought it was old. Of course it's old. That's why I like to wear it. Why can't you wear your own clothes? I don't wear your clothes, do I? Melissa laughed. Her father weighed 200 pounds, more than twice as much as she did. You're welcome to, Dad, anytime. Melissa laughed. Her father... I'm sorry. Mrs. Dryden glanced at the clock radio on the bed table and frowned. Why are we exchanging clothes at 3:30 in the morning? Sorry, Mom, Melissa said. She slid under the sheet. I'm okay. We can go back to bed now. What time did you get in tonight? Mrs. Dryden asked. Late, I'll bet. Yeah, it was pretty late. I'm not sure when. Pretty late, or very late. Come on, Mom, Melissa said impatiently, sitting up. Summer's over in a week. Buddy and I haven't had a chance to see each other. He was away on vacation at his parents' for 2 weeks, and, well, that's why you're screaming your head off, imagining prowlers. You're overtired. Melissa groaned. Her mother's explanation for anything that ever happened was, you're overtired. If you messed up on a test, or didn't feel like eating, or were in a bad mood, it had to be because you were overtired. Mother, for the last time, there really is a prowler on Fear Street. I didn't imagine that. It's in the newspaper practically every day. It's so hot in here, her mother said. She never could stick to a subject. Her mind flitted from one thing to another, like a bee buzzing from a flower to flower. It's 80 degrees outside. Why don't you open that window? I don't really want to, Melissa said, feeling a little of the fear creep back. Well, then, let's go to bed. Are you coming, Wes? She pulled her husband's sleeve. Yeah, sure. But come here a minute, Lisa. I want to show you something. Huh? Can it wait till morning? Melissa suddenly felt very happy. No, come on. He grabbed both her hands beneath her hands and pulled her easily out of bed. Wow, you're so light. Are you starting in again about how skinny I am? No, come on. I want to show you something that will make you feel better. His expression grew serious, and he pulled her across the hall to their bedroom. Wes, really? Let her get some sleep. She's very overtired, her mother said, following behind. This'll only take a second. I want to calm her down. Mr. Dryden said, clicking on the ceiling light. They stepped into the large bedroom, all shades of blue, which always smelled of Mrs. Dryden's perfume. Melissa's father pulled her to his bed table and then let go of her hands. He pulled the drawer of the bed table out nearly as far as it would go and reached into the back of the drawer. Here it is, he said, a grim smile on his round face. He held up a small silver pistol. Melissa's mouth dropped open in surprise. A gun? Is it real? Mr. Dryden dropped it into her hand. It felt much heavier than it looked and was cold to the touch. Of course it's real. And it's loaded. Melissa shuddered and quickly handed the gun back to him. Hey, don't look so terrified. He spun the gun around on his finger. You know, I've been hunting since I was 10. I know a thing or two about guns. Put it away, Wes, Mrs. Dryden said from the other side of the bed. She yawned loudly. I thought I bought it right after I read the first news story about the Fear Street Prowler. I just want to show Lisa that if he ever does try to break in here, I'll be ready for him. Thanks, Daddy, Melissa said, pushing a tangle of hair out of her face. Normally, she would have made a joke or said something sarcastic, but she was just too tired. The gun is always here in this drawer, Mr. Dryden said, carefully replacing it and sliding the drawer shut. Good night, Melissa said. Good night. Her father was already under the covers. I want that shirt back tomorrow, Mr. Dryden called out to her. Melissa crept back to her room, turned off the lamp, and climbed into bed. The tree branch was still tapping gently against the window pane. She pulled the covers up and her head and tried to ignore it. She turned onto her back and then after a few minutes slid onto her side. Despite her weariness, she couldn't fall asleep. What a terrible night. First the argument with Buddy, then the false alarm about the prowler. She thought about Buddy. She had been so glad to see him. It had been 2 whole weeks, after all. He looked so tan, so handsome after 2 weeks at the beach. They had so much to talk about, so she had minded when he suggested they borrow his dad's car and drive up to River Ridge to talk. River Ridge, high above the Chinook River, was one of the prettiest spots in Shadyside. It was also the favorite makeout spot of kids from Shadyside High. Buddy drove really fast. Melissa had to plead with him to slow down. He pulled into a secluded spot overlooking the river and cut the engine and lights. So tell me about your vacation. Did you meet any cute girls? Melissa teased. Instead of replying, Buddy had pulled her closer and wrapped his arms around her. They kissed, a long, lingering kiss. Buddy, I thought we came up here to talk. I haven't seen you for weeks. He pushed her hair back behind her shoulders with both hands. We can talk later. No, Buddy. But he didn't want to take no for an answer. Before Melissa even realized it, he had slipped a hand under her blouse. Move your hand, she pulled away from him. Come on, Buddy. She reached for the door handle. He looked very surprised. Hey, what are you doing? I thought you'd be glad to see me. I said I wanted to talk. He apologized and then apologized some more. but as far as she was concerned, the evening was ruined. What was the matter with him, anyway? He had never acted like that before. "Let's start over," he suggested, looking very unhappy. They tried to have a normal conversation then, but it just didn't work. Melissa still felt surprised and angry, and Buddy was obviously angry too. A short while later they drove home in silence. As Buddy pulled up the drive, he apologized again. He really sounded as if he were sorry. She kissed him quickly on the cheek and ran into the house, more upset with herself than with him. Now, as she turned over in bed, trying to get comfortable, feeling very hot, her hair wet and matted against the back of her neck, she blamed herself for spoiling their reunion date. Maybe she had overreacted. Sure, he came on too strong, a lot of the time. Sure, he could be pushy, even selfish at times, but he really did care about her, and most of the time, he was a great guy. If only she could stop thinking and get to sleep. It must be after at 4 in the morning. She punched the pillow, fluffing it up. Oh, whoops. The tree limb tapped against the window, 3 short taps. She pictured her father removing the pistol from the bed table drawer with that grim smile. The silver pistol. She saw him spin it on his finger. "The gun is always here in this drawer," he had said. Despite the heat of the room, Melissa shuddered. There was something so frightening about that little silver pistol, lying there in the drawer, just waiting to be used. Oh my goodness. Chapter 2. Oh my goodness. Maybe I should tie my hair back, Melissa thought, lying on her stomach on her bed, trying to read a book. She pulled at her hair with her free hand and kept pushing strands out of her face. "Why don't you get it cut before school starts?" her friend Della O'Connor had asked a few days earlier. Della had perfect hair, straight, black, and long past her shoulders, and it always fell perfectly into place. Mine never does that. "I like it wild like this," Melissa had replied. After all, what good was hair if you couldn't toss it, pull it, play with it, swing it around? Melissa didn't want perfect hair. She wanted hair with personality. If only it would stay out of her eyes while she read. And why am I reading this Stephen King twig on the window? Last night and this afternoon, I'm reading this creepy book. She read a little longer, then looked up. The room suddenly felt cold. Had she imagined it? No. The air was cold, as if a wintry breeze had blown in. She looked at the window. The afternoon was still high in the sky. The curtains weren't blowing. There was no breeze at all. Still cold, she closed the book and stood up. Shadows from the trees outside her window played against the wall. She heard the front door slam downstairs. "I'm home," her father yelled. He's home early, she thought. What's going on? "Lisa, are you home?" He was calling from the foot of the stairs. "Yes, I'm here, Daddy," forgetting about the strange chill in the room. She tossed the book on her bed and hurried down the stairs. The air felt warm as soon as she left her room. Mr. Dryden, his eyeglasses sliding down his nose, as usual, watched her descend the stairs with a strange smile on his face. "What's that smile for, Daddy? Aren't you home a little early?" He put on a phony, hurt expression. Aren't you glad to see me?" "No, not at all," she replied with a straight face. "Well, I think you'll be glad when you see what I have for you. Where's your mother?" "What do you think he has?" Let's see. "She flew to Florida. She wants to surprise you with a tan at dinner. What do you have for me?" "No, really. Where is she?" "At the mall. Where else?" He looked disappointed. "Oh, well, I can't wait for her. I have to show you." He remained where he was and slowly pushed his glasses up. He slid right back down his nose. "Show me what? Come on. Are you deliberately keeping me in suspense?" He laughed. "Maybe I am. Maybe I should make you guess what your birthday surprise is." "Birthday surprise? But my birthday isn't until Friday." She frantically tried to think of what he could have bought her. He hadn't even asked her, goodness, what she wanted. What did she want? She couldn't think of anything. A new Walkman, maybe? Some CDs? "Maybe I'll make you wait till Friday," he said, obviously teasing. "Let's change the subject." He loosened his tie and started to remove his suit jacket. "No way," Melissa cried. "You started this. Now, come on, Dad. Cough it up." He reached into his suit jacket pocket and dropped a set of keys into her hands. All right, so what are the keys for? Okay, there you go. Happy birthday. Melissa stared down at the keys, confused. "What's this?" "Look." He pulled open the front door. Sitting in the driveway was a shiny blue Pontiac Firebird. "Are you kidding?" Melissa cried, finally catching on. "That's for me?" He just grinned and nodded his head. "I don't believe it." Melissa jumped up and hugged him, nearly knocking him over backward. There she pushed open the screen door and ran out to examine her new car. "Well, go ahead, sit in it," Mr. Dryden said after they had walked around at least a dozen times. "I can't believe this is mine," Melissa said, sliding behind the wheel. She sniffed, smiling as she breathed in the wonderful new car smell. She ran her hand over the leather seat and then tried the steering wheel. "I never had a brand new car. Mine were always used." "I may want to borrow it from time to time," her father said, lowering his bulky frame into the passenger seat. "Listen, Dad, this is too much." "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean. This is too extravagant." He laughed. "Yeah, you're a spoiled brat. You're spoiled rotten. Maybe I'll keep the car after all." He grabbed the keys from her hand, but she grabbed them back. "On second thought, what's so terrible about being spoiled rotten?" she said. He sighed. His smile faded. "When I was your age, I was lucky to get a toy car. Birthdays were pretty grim around my house." I know. Your mother couldn't afford a birthday cake, so she used to buy stale birthday cakes that other people forgot to pick up. On your third birthday, you told everyone your name was Seymour because that's what it said on your cake." He shook his head. "You know all my old jokes. Listen, it just makes me feel good to be able to give you nice gifts. It makes me realize how far I've come from those days." She kissed him on the cheek. "I've got to show this to Della. Can I drive it?" He shrugged and started to lift himself out of the car. "It's yours. Go ahead. But don't stay too long. Your mother will be disappointed if she doesn't get to see him." "Great. Della won't believe this." She ran into the house, got her purse with her driver's license in it, and ran back to the car. Mr. Dryden was still in the drive, polishing a spot on the hood with his jacket sleeve. She climbed behind the wheel and carefully closed the door. "You look great in it," her father said. "Your hair looks like it's already blowing in the wind, even though you're not moving yet." "Very funny. Dad remind me to laugh when I get home. Why was everybody always putting her hair down?" She turned the key in the ignition. The car began to purr. She turned to the rear window and started to back down the drive, slowly, carefully. How can you do anything slowly or carefully with a Firebird? "He's standing there watching me. I know I'm going to back right into the hedges," she told herself, realizing she was really nervous driving a beautiful new car. But she made it past the hedges and onto Fear Street. A few minutes later, she turned up the Mill Road and headed toward North Hills section of town where Della lived. The car handled beautifully. It was so easy to drive. Something is going to happen in this car. I just know it. The Mill Road was pretty crowded and people going home from work, but most of the traffic was heading the other way. The sun was low behind the trees, but the air was still warm and humid. She turned onto Canyon Drive to get away from the traffic and pressed down hard on the accelerator. The car responded immediately with a roar and a burst of speed. "Wait till Buddy gets a load of this," she thought, passing a slow-moving vegetable truck, then swerving back into the right lane. "Wait till everyone gets a load of this." She glanced at the speedometer. She was doing 75, so she lightened up on the gas pedal. She was driving right into the sun now, lowering the visor behind a little, but didn't cut all of the glare. "Oh!" she cried out as the car suddenly veered to the right. Melissa grabbed the wheel tighter, her heart pounding. What had happened? Was the car pulling to the right? No, it happened so suddenly, with such force that it felt as if someone had grabbed the wheel. She felt a sudden chill. She put her hand over the air vent to see if the air conditioner was blowing. It wasn't. Bright sunlight blanketed the windshield, and yet the air in the car was extremely cold. Melissa slowed down, keeping a tight grip on the wheel. She had just started to relax a little when the car jerked again, swerving wildly to the right. The tires spun onto the soft shoulder. Melissa struggled to regain control. What was going on? Again, it felt as if someone had jerked the steering wheel. She tightened her grip on the wheel and leaned forward. She slowed down to 25. There's something wrong with the car, she told herself. What was that? It sounded like whispering, a voice nearby. No, it couldn't be. It was the wind. Again she heard it. She shivered from the cold, from surprise, from sudden fear. She gripped the wheel tighter still and stared straight ahead. What was it saying? She could hear it so clearly, a whisper right in her ear. Did it say her name? Yes, that's what it sounded like. Melissa. Just wind, cold wind in her ear, cold wind whispering so softly in her ear. Melissa. Della's house was just a few blocks away. I can make it, she thought, staring straight ahead, ignoring the whispering wind that repeated her name so insistently, so menacingly. I can make it if I can just keep control of the car. No, she cried as the car swerved hard, this time to the left, crossing the center lane into a path of an onrushing oil truck. Oh no, what is going to happen? Here we have Chapter 3. Happy birthday, Lissa. Hi, Della. You're late. Everyone's here already. It was Friday evening. Melissa's house was filled with kids. Della stepped into the front hallway. There was a loud crash from the den, followed by laughter. Sounds like I'm just in time, Della said, handing Melissa a present, a flat rectangular box wrapped in red and blue tissue paper. It's a car, she said. I thought you could use too. Don't mention my new car, Melissa said, rolling her eyes. Only 2 days old, and in the garage already. Did they find out what's wrong with the steering? No, they can't find anything wrong. Daddy told them to keep looking till they find it. He's more upset than I am. I'm the one who was almost killed by the oil truck. Hey, where's Pete? Here I am. Pete Goodwin popped up behind Della, a broad smile on his handsome face. Happy birthday. He handed Melissa a small flat package, obviously a CD. Hope you like Weird Al. Oh no, Weird Al Yankovic. Oh, for those who don't know, he used to do parodies. I remember him doing Thriller by Michael Jackson. Instead of doing Thriller, he said, eat it. All right. Anyway, I just went off subject. Oh, get real, Pete, Della said, poking him hard in the ribs with her elbow. All right. Pete shrugged. Della told you were into Weird Al. I'll put it in the other room with the other stuff, Melissa said. Pete's okay, she thought. For a long time, she had wondered why Della liked him so much. Sure, he was nice looking, but he was so straight and preppy, and he always seemed sort of snobby and stiff. Here he was in his standard outfit, tan chinos and a white pullover shirt with a little black polo pony on the breast. His wavy brown hair was short and perfectly parted. He looked like such a preppy. But after spending a lot of time with Pete and Della, Melissa had decided her first impression of Pete were wrong. He was really nice and very smart, and he loosened up a lot after he got to know you. Della, of course, looked as beautiful as ever. Her straight black hair, tied loosely by a plain white ribbon, fell softly down her back. Her silky green blouse matched her eyes. Her black straight-legged jeans showed off her perfect model figure. Melissa tugged at both sides of her frizzy blonde hair, which she had actually tried to brush before the party. I'm not going to be jealous of Della, she thought, staring at Della's hair as she followed them into the large, noisy den. I'm not going to be the jealous. Not on my birthday. Hey, Lisa, good party, Melissa Foster called. The stereo was cranked up really loud, and she was dancing in the middle of the crowded room with Billy Clausen. Billy was such a bad dancer. He looked like a penguin bobbing from side to side. Melissa had dated Billy for a while in her freshman year. Watching him flop around to the music with Melanie, she couldn't imagine why. You got any more chips? David Metcalf called. He was sitting in an armchair in the corner, holding the potato chip bowl in his lap, stuffing his face. Chrissy Monroe reached out from behind the armchair, grabbed the potato chip bowl, and dumped it over David's head. He he protested loudly, blindly, reached for Chrissy, but she was already halfway across the room. "Hey, where's Buddy?" Della asked, leaning close to Melissa and shouting to be heard over the music. Good question, Melissa thought. He's late, she shouted. So what else is new? Buddy wasn't the most punctual person in the universe, but Melissa was disappointed that he hadn't tried to be on time for her birthday party. She looked around the room and realized Buddy would be the last to arrive. Can he still be mad at me about the other night? She wondered, glancing up at the clock over the mantelpiece. No, he had been very apologetic, and he had called her the next day. They'd had a nice long talk. Stop being so nervous, she scolded herself. It isn't even that late. She thought she heard the doorbell. It was impossible to hear anything over the loud music, and even louder voices. She stared out of the den, and there was Buddy grinning at her from the doorway. He was wearing a sleeveless blue t-shirt and white tennis shorts, obviously showing off his tan. He looks great, Melissa thought, rushing up to greet him. Hi. He kissed her quickly and shoved a small box wrapped in silver into her hand. Go ahead. Open it. No. She squeezed his hand. I'll open it later. With all the others, he gave her his hurt look. She leaned against him and whispered in his ear, Stay after everyone's left. I'll open it then. Hey, Buddy. David Metcalf yelled from the chair. I bet I know what you're giving Melissa for her birthday. He said it real suggestively, with a dirty leer on his face, and everyone laughed. Shut up, Metcalf, Buddy shouted, but he was laughing too. Melissa punched him playfully on the chest, and he staggered backward. Any more chips? Metcalf called, holding up the empty bowl. Turn the music up, someone yelled. I can still hear Metcalf. Marnie Foster had gone over by the window to talk to friends, but Billy Clausen was still dancing, all by himself. He pulled Chrissy Monroe into the center of the room, but she stood and stared at him, refusing to dance. It didn't seem to bother Billy, who didn't slow down, holding on to both of Chrissy's hands as he bobbed about. Finally, Chrissy's boyfriend, Ira Hewlett, came over to rescue her. A slow number came on, and a few more couples started dancing. Melissa had to laugh. Pete was standing straight as a broomstick as he danced with Della. She had her eyes closed and didn't seem to mind. Melissa looked for Buddy, thinking he might want to dance, but he was in the corner talking heatedly to Normie Schrader. They were both demonstrating forehand swings, so Melissa figured they were talking tennis, which both of them were fanatics about. The party was going really well. Everyone seemed to be having a great time. Melissa relaxed and enjoyed it too. The next time she looked at the clock, it was 11:30. Uh-oh, she thought. She had promised she'd try to have everyone out of the house by midnight. Cake time, she cried, and turned off the stereo. Cake time, come on, everyone, into the dining room. You sure know how to spoil a party, David Metcalf yelled. Everyone hissed him down. Just for that, I'm not going to sing, David grumbled. Having them all sing happy birthday to her was just as embarrassing as her 17th birthday as it had been on all the others, but the huge chocolate cake was moist and delicious, and Billy Clausen was the only one to spill his soda all over the tablecloth, so Melissa considered this part of the party a success. "Aren't we going to play Pin the Tail on the Donkey?" Chrissy asked as they finished their cake. "Aren't we going to play Spin the Bottle?" David Metcalf asked with a dirty laugh. "Hey, remember Post Office? Did you ever play that when you were a kid?" Pete asked. "I played it last week," Billy said, and everyone laughed. "How about Dirty Doctor?" Melissa asked. Great game, everyone agreed. "My dad's a doctor," Normie said, "so I used to play it with a stethoscope." Whoa, wow. Everyone seemed really impressed. "How do you play?" Marnie asked innocently. That got the biggest laugh of the night. Billy jumped up and started to pull her away from the table. "Come in the other room. I'll show you. I'll even let you be the patient." They got an even bigger laugh. "No time," Melissa cried, swallowing her last mouthful of cake and jumping to her feet. You've all got to get out of here 10 minutes ago." "Party pooper," someone yelled. "Open the presents," David shouted. "Open the presents. Open the presents." A few of her friends took up the chant. "Okay, sorry, I almost forgot." "Sure, you already got a car. Why should you care about our presents?" Buddy said. "Nice, Buddy." Melissa knew he was only joking, but for some reason the joke annoyed her. Her friends often gave her a hard time because her family was wealthy. They were always making cracks. She didn't expect to hear from Buddy, too. "Come on. I put them all in the downstairs guest bedroom," Melissa said. "We'll have to hurry. My parents will be home soon, and I promise you'd be out of here when they get back." "We can take a hint," David said. Buddy put his arm around her shoulders as she led them to the guest bedroom. She immediately forgave him for his stupid remark. "I stacked all the presents on the bed," Melissa said, to no one in particular, "and I think we can." She clicked on the light and looked at the bed and gasped, "Oh no!" Everyone pushed into the room. "What's going on? What happened? Who did that?" The room grew silent. Everyone stared at the bed. The presents were scattered over the bed and floor. They had all been ripped open. Melissa was kissing Buddy goodnight in the den when her parents walked in. "The party's still going on?" Mrs. Dryden asked. Buddy, embarrassed, pulled away from Melissa and jumped up from the couch. "I was just going." "How was the party?" Mr. Dryden asked, walking over to the potato chip bowl, visibly disappointed to find it empty. "Great," Melissa said quickly. She had decided not to tell her parents about the presents being ripped open. Why bother them with something so silly? "I think everyone had a good time." Yeah, it was great," Buddy repeated, inching toward the front hall. "Too bad about your rug and the wallpaper and those dishes." "What?" Melissa's mother looked as if she were about to have a heart attack. "Buddy's kidding, Mom," Melissa said, walking over and giving Buddy a hard shove. "Aren't you used to his bizarre sense of humor yet?" "I don't think I'll ever get used to it," Mrs. Dryden said, slumping into a chair. Did they all eat all the potato chips?" Mr. Dryden asked, turning another large plastic bowl upside down. "When the potato chips ran out, they ate the bowls," Buddy said. What's going on here? Oh. Sure, Melissa said. Did you have anything you have to do right now? Not really, Della replied. What is going on? What is this? All right. 25. Okay. Well, that's the end of the chapter. And I thought I'd stop. I'd introduce myself. My name is Ruben Shoup. I am the YA horror author of Vampire Juice. It is a horror mystery adventure with two teens. Yes, two teens that are in the midst of a romance. It is Fear Street meets Nancy Drew. And here's the short blurb for my book, Vampire Juice. Amanda and Sean stumble upon a mysterious can of juice while searching for Halloween costumes at a local store. Despite being kicked out by the sales clerk, they become obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the strange drink. With the help from some local bullies, they sneak back into the store through a crypt in the graveyard, only to find themselves in the midst of a spine-chilling adventure. If that's something that interests you, my link is in the bio. And thank you for watching. Until next time.